The first time I saw her, I thought, Karen. Of course it's Karen. She was the type that seems to exist solely to make other people miserable. A pristine blonde with a bob cut that was as sharp as her tongue. She was standing in front of her immaculate townhouse, heels digging into the concrete, arms folded like she was guarding the gates to heaven itself. The HOA was her playground, and every resident a piece on her chessboard. I, however, was about to become the wrong piece to move. It all began on a Tuesday. I had just returned from a late meeting in the city, exhausted but satisfied. My neighborhood, once calm and quiet, had become a battleground of petty rules and microaggressions, orchestrated mainly by Karen. She had made it her personal mission to nitpick every detail of every property on our street. Fences, lawns, mailboxes, even the shade of curtains we dared hang. She was meticulous, venomous, and utterly oblivious to the lives she disrupted. I parked my car, a modest black SUV, and stepped onto my driveway. That's when I saw her, staring at me from across the street with the kind of intensity that made your skin crawl. "Oh, look who's home," she said sweetly, the word "look" carrying a weight of menace. "I hope you know HOA rules about parking on the street." I raised an eyebrow. "Yes, Karen, I'm aware, and yes, I am in my own driveway." She tisked, the sound sharp as a whip. Well, some of us have standards. That was when I realized she had escalated. There had been whispers, notes slipped under doors, and passive-aggressive emails to the HOA board. She had complained about me before, but now she had crossed into a level of intrusion that bordered on harassment. Her next move was audacious. A notice appeared on my front door, violation of HOA regulations, action pending. I read it carefully. The violation, my small garden shed, homemade and clearly within code, was unaesthetic. She had singled it out, claiming it violated the neighborhood's harmonious aesthetic vision. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. The fire was lit. I began my quiet observation. Karen had her routine, morning coffee on the porch at 7:15 sharp, garden gloves in hand, glaring at anyone who dared disturb her imagined empire. I watched her from the shadows, noting every minute detail, the way she prided herself on knowing every neighbor's business, her meticulous schedule, her weaknesses hidden behind an air of superiority. The perfect storm came 2 weeks later. A package, large and awkward, arrived at my home. I had ordered a custom security system, state-of-the-art, integrated with cameras, motion sensors, and direct links to local authorities. I installed the cameras strategically, including one that covered Karen's property line, a subtle but potent oversight. It was late afternoon when she made her next move. She appeared in my driveway, clipboard in hand, inspecting my shed as though she were about to write the final judgment. "You really think this fits with the neighborhood aesthetic?" she asked, voice syrupy with condescension. "I'm going to have to file another complaint if this isn't corrected immediately." I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. The fire was lit. I began my quiet observation. Karen had her routine, morning coffee on the porch at 7:15 sharp, garden gloves in hand, glaring at anyone who dared disturb her imagined empire. I watched her from the shadows, noting every minute detail, the way she prided herself on knowing every neighbor's business, her meticulous schedule, her weaknesses hidden behind an air of superiority. The perfect storm came 2 weeks later. A package, large and awkward, arrived at my home. I had ordered a custom security system, state-of-the-art, integrated with cameras, motion sensors, and direct links to local authorities. I installed the cameras strategically, including one that covered Karen's property line, a subtle but potent oversight. It was late afternoon when she made her next move. She appeared in my driveway, clipboard in hand, inspecting my shed as though she were about to write the final judgment. You really think this fits with the neighborhood aesthetic? She asked, voice syrupy with condescension. I'm going to have to file another complaint if this isn't corrected immediately. I stood casually behind her, hands in my pockets, letting the sun cast long shadows over my face. Karen, I said slowly, deliberately, you should know, I take violations seriously. Her eyes narrowed. Do you? Because I don't think you understand. Before she could finish, a sharp beep came from my phone. The camera outside my window had detected motion. She had stepped onto my property line, technically trespassing according to the laws I had researched meticulously. I smiled wider, and this time it wasn't just a smile. You've stepped onto my property, Karen. That's trespassing. Her face went pale, and for the first time, I saw hesitation. She had underestimated me. I didn't, she began, but the sound of my phone chiming again cut her off. The screen displayed the live feed from every angle, the front, the sides, the backyard. Each corner of my property meticulously covered. Each of her moves recorded. You have cameras? She whispered, panic threading her voice. I do, and they're linked directly to my attorney and the local authorities. Every step you take beyond your property line is logged and actionable.
Her lips trembled. You wouldn't. Oh, Karen, I said softly, almost pitying her. You have no idea who you're dealing with. It was true. For years I had cultivated a quiet reputation in the city. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was a litigator, a strategist, someone who thrived in situations where others flailed. Karen thought she had power here. She didn't realize she had awakened a storm. The following days were a calculated performance. Every move she made, every note left on doors, every complaint filed, was met with precision counteractions. Letters from my attorney arrived in her mailbox, polite but cutting, citing her harassment, trespassing, and intimidation. HOA meetings, once her theater, became a stage for her unraveling as I revealed the legal implications of her behavior. Then came the day she crossed the line completely. I had received reports from other neighbors. Karen had verbally harassed a family while they were moving in, claiming their landscaping didn't meet community standards. I knew that was the final straw. I walked into the HOA office that afternoon, calm, collected. As she sat smugly behind the board desk, I presented documents she couldn't deny. Complaints filed against her, evidence of harassment, proof of trespassing. Her confidence faltered. Every accusation she had levied against me came back to her magnified. And then I revealed the truth she could never have anticipated. Karen, I am not just a resident. I am the attorney representing multiple homeowners here, including several who have quietly endured your harassment for years. Your actions are now subject to both HOA and legal review. Her face went pale. Her hands shook. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She had realized too late that she had been playing with someone who could dismantle her meticulously constructed reign with a few keystrokes and careful strategy. That night, as she sat in her pristine home, I knew she was thinking of retaliation. But I had already anticipated it. I had already mapped out every potential move, every defense, every counter. The game was no longer hers. It was mine. By the time the week ended, she had been suspended from the HOA board. The whispers around the neighborhood began to change. People who had feared her now looked at her with a mix of disbelief and caution. My property was untouched, my life uninterrupted, and for the first time in months, I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. Yet I knew better to celebrate too soon. Karen was dangerous. She was cunning, and the storm that I had set in motion had only just begun. Because what she didn't know, what no one knew, was how far I was willing to go, how precise, calculated, and relentless I could be when pushed. Karen had crossed the wrong neighbor, and soon the full extent of my revenge would unfold, leaving no room for doubt about who truly commanded respect in this neighborhood. If you want, I can immediately continue with Part 2, which escalates her downfall to the peak of suspense, showing her complete unraveling and the ultimate dramatic revenge payoff. Karen didn't sleep that night. I knew because my cameras, discreetly placed, picked up her pacing, muttering under her breath, phone in hand, likely texting allies or plotting some retaliation. But she had underestimated the layers I had built. Every move she considered had already been anticipated, countered, and neutralized. The next morning the neighborhood awoke to an unusual quiet. Word had spread fast. Karen had been formally reprimanded by the HOA, her suspension announced in the monthly bulletin, her emails and complaints now scrutinized under legal oversight. Her arrogance, once untouchable, had been exposed. She was fragile, rattled, and for the first time, visible cracks appeared in her armor. But I wasn't done. Suspension was only the beginning. Karen's obsession with control, with the illusion of power, was her weakness, and I intended to exploit it fully. Over the following days, I began a subtle campaign that left no fingerprints, yet made her life unbearable. Anonymous letters arrived at her door, not threatening, not overtly accusatory, but meticulously detailing each minor violation she had ever imposed on others. Emails, screenshots, HOA notices, meticulously collated into a dossier she couldn't ignore.
At first, she panicked. Her eyes darted at every shadow, every corner of her immaculate home. She called the HOA repeatedly, trying to demand action, only to discover that the board, previously under her sway, now viewed her as a liability. Friends she had manipulated to support her began to distance themselves, politely but firmly. I watched her unravel with the satisfaction of someone who had played a long game. Her emails became erratic, her tone increasingly desperate. She tried to confront me personally, storming onto my property one afternoon, heels clicking against the driveway like drumbeats of impending disaster. "You think you can destroy me?" she hissed, eyes wild. I greeted her calmly, hands in pockets, the sun casting shadows over my face, making me appear taller, larger, more formidable. "Karen," I said softly, almost pitying, "I'm not destroying you. I'm showing you the consequences of your actions." Her face twisted in confusion and fear. "Consequences? You can't do this. You're just—" "Yes, I am just someone who knows exactly how to play by the rules and how to make others follow them when they forget. You've tested boundaries, broken laws, and harassed neighbors. Now you're witnessing accountability." By then, a small crowd of neighbors had gathered, curious and tense. Karen's face turned red, her voice rising. "This is harassment! You're harassing me!" I gestured toward my phone. "Actually, Karen, what you are seeing is evidence, documented, recorded, verified. Harassment requires intent. Your actions provided all the proof needed for legal action against you. I'm merely demonstrating reality." Her knees nearly buckled. The realization hit her. She had been outmaneuvered at every turn. Her reputation was crumbling in real time, her power evaporating as the neighborhood witnessed her unraveling. Every complaint she had filed, every neighbor she had bullied, now became part of her own undoing. And then came the pièce de résistance. A week later, at the HOA's monthly meeting, I arrived early, prepared. Karen, unaware, sat at the head of the board table, her expression smug yet nervous. I handed the chairman a thick binder.
all her violations, her harassment reports, emails, trespassing documentation, and video evidence from my cameras. The room fell silent as the chairman reviewed the material. Karen's face went pale as each page turned, her eyes widening in horror. She tried to interject, stammering, but the weight of the evidence silenced her. The board voted unanimously, permanent removal from the HOA board, fines levied for harassment, and a formal notice that any further intimidation or trespassing would be met with immediate legal action. The neighbors who had long endured her tyranny applauded quietly, relief mingled with disbelief. Karen's world had imploded, not with shouting or confrontation, but through meticulous strategy, patience, and unwavering resolution through the law and reason. After the meeting, as she fled the building, avoiding the neighbors' eyes, I finally allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Justice had been served, not through anger, not through vengeance alone, but through careful, precise, unassailable action. Weeks later, life returned to normal. The neighborhood, once ruled by fear, became a place of cautious harmony. My garden shed remained untouched, my home unassailed, and Karen's warnings and complaints became nothing more than memories, a cautionary tale whispered among neighbors. From a distance, I watched her pack her belongings, move to a different city, start over, humbled and broken. And as I poured my morning coffee on the porch, sunlight streaming across my yard, I reflected on the truth I had demonstrated so vividly. Arrogance unchecked, cruelty disguised as authority, and the illusion of power, all of it could crumble under the weight of skill, patience, and unwavering resolution. Karen had crossed the wrong neighbor. She had awakened a storm, and I had guided it with precision. She had learned, finally, that appearances could be deceiving, and that the quiet, unassuming neighbor next door could be the most formidable force in any neighborhood. I lifted my coffee cup and smiled, a small, deliberate gesture. The lesson was clear. Underestimate me at your peril. Some storms are silent, but when they strike, they leave nothing standing. And Karen, for all her fury and control, had finally seen who I really was.